What's happening, man? Joni? Driving back from Miami. About to fall asleep. Sipping on some Cuban coffee. Straight up. They serve this shit in thimbles down there. I love it. 2 of those thimbles and I'm good to go. For like 6 hours. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about, honestly, was a little story. Something that I find super interesting that I always find myself talking about. Especially if I connect with someone who will listen. I do like to hear myself talk about this. It's one of those topics that when you connect with someone who knows it, they love hearing it just as much as you love telling them, but they don't need to hear it. And it's the people you connect with who are like, yeah, whatever, you know, who don't really understand what you're saying. Those are the people who need to hear it, but they just dismiss it. And of course, what I'm talking about is the phenomena, the law of attraction, right? The cliche law of attraction and manifestation. The secret as it's been marketed. This is some good stuff, man. I stumbled into this a few years ago, actually. I heard about it, read about it, and of course they market it very well with that book, The Secret, that came out years ago. So it grabs your attention, but there's other things that, for me, everyone has to receive it in their own time, and the time that I received it the most this was a few years after my divorce. Went through a rough time, went through a rough financial time, and I just felt really down and out as far as like bottom of the barrel, so to speak. Mostly it was career, relationship, and finances, essentially. There was no major health things going on or anything like that. There was just a lot of living conditions that those living conditions of those things I was talking about, career, finances, and my interactions with other people, that was really dragging me down, causing my mood to really swing into a dark place. I remember I was in the hospital where I was working, so I was in the basement of this hospital doing some low voltage cabling. And you ever seen, like, in the horror movies or these mystery movies or these thrillers where there's a long corridor in like a basement somewhere or a boiler room, or in my case like the hospital, like there's one light like every 50 feet, and in between there it's real dim and nasty, and you can just hear industrial equipment off in the distance somewhere, like this refrigerator hum of you don't know what it is, where it's coming from. And there's like old beds stacked up in the corner and some boxes. Other than that, man, it's just quiet. Nothing else, nothing going on. Well, that's where I was. And so I was in the basement of this hospital doing some low voltage cabling. And I worked by myself, and I had my tool belt on. And, I realized at that point, I think what happened is I got an alert from the bank that one of my accounts was overdrawn when I filled up my truck with gas that day. And I was done. I was like, dude, that's it. I'm overdrawn on that account. I'm worth less than zero. I'm worth less than zero. And so I felt worthless. Get it? Worthless. And I really felt worthless. And I was worth less than zero at that time, monetarily speaking. My relationship I was trying to work out, this wasn't my divorce. This was post-divorce. Another woman I was dating. That was trouble. It wasn't connecting. I won't even get into that. That's a whole different thing. It was just, we were butting heads on what we both wanted, where we're at in our life. And so I made a declaration to myself that time. I was like, I know how to get myself out of this. I just said to myself, I gotta think more positive. I gotta stop berating myself. And actually, I was told I needed to stop berating myself, because at that basement, I made a phone call to my mom. Grown man making my phone calls to my mom. She probably actually called me. She calls frequently, likes to check up on the family. And she could sense in my voice that I was not in a good place. So I recall the conversation. I wasn't going to bring that up, but why not be transparent about it? And so I just mentioned to her that, that I was feeling pretty depressed, down and out, and and I was berating myself. I was pretty much talking trash to myself, how I wasn't getting myself out of this scenario. I'd been in it for a while. I had no drive, no ambition, no nothing, just constantly berating myself to this, creating a bad mindset image. And I remember her saying, listen, you need to stop berating yourself. This is a phase, this will pass. Telling me all the things that moms tell you. But it wasn't doing anything. But what it did do is it made me realize, she is right. To some point, there is a level of realization that, for me anyway, I know some people can swing way far where this doesn't happen. Remember, I was there for a few days before I actually came to this point and just got sick and tired. Like, I got tired of being depressed. Like, it was enough already. I was fucking done. I was done. I was over. I was like, dude, the only way out of this is here. Nothing I can do outside of myself can dig me out of this place I'm in. Nothing. What am I going to wait for someone else to offer me? What? A winning lotto ticket for the financial stuff? Is all of a sudden the relationship I'm in, is that girl just going to say, hey, you know what? Your perspective and everything you want to happen, let's do it. No. And even if she did, I'd question, what's this motive? Why is she saying that? When you're in that mindset, you question everything. And everything's this pessimistic, it comes to you in a pessimistic context, So what I said was, I've got to get myself out of this. I just got to start thinking positive. I just got to consciously start thinking positive. Like, if I have to set a timer on my watch or my phone and every 10 minutes say something positive, even if it's complete bullshit, I'm going to do it. And the first thing I did at that point is I said, you know what? I'm going to Google positive thinking videos. And so I did that. I picked up my phone, I hit the Google microphone and said, positive thinking videos. And YouTube opened up. And the first one was this little bald-headed guy named Leo. He might be tall, who knows? But it was a little image of Leo from actualize.org came up, and it said positive thinking. So I watched it. It's like a, 10 or 20 minute video. And he starts out telling about this little Zen story. And I'm not going to repeat the story, but essentially it's a matter of, you can find this video, by the way, from actualize.org. Just Google it. Actualize.org, positive thinking, and listen to it. It's the very first video that I watched that turned something on for me. It was amazing. There was a lot of stuff I watched that time. That was the first YouTube one that I watched that really clicked in a way that started a progression of other YouTube videos and other authors and speakers that really resonated and led to my epiphany. So basically, the quick little video that he spoke about was that you never can tell what scenario is good or bad. Something that seems tragic and difficult may end up being for the benefit. One of the examples he gives was this little Zen story about this farmer, and I won't do the whole story, but like part of the story was, for example, he has a horse, and the horse is the only thing that he has to plow his field, and this Zen following farmer is on the outskirts of this little village, and his horse runs off. And all the other villagers are, oh my gosh, so we're so sorry, that your horse ran off. How are you going to plow your fields now? That's the only horse you have. This is really bad that this happened to you. We're sorry. And the Zen farmer says, maybe. And he doesn't show much emotional, invest in the fact that his only plow horse ran off. So that villagers were like, whatever, I'd be pretty upset if my horse ran off. And so a few days later, the horse returns, and it came back with another horse. Another horse had followed it in. Didn't know where it came from. But it picked up a mate and brought it back. No one claimed the horse. No one knew where it came from. So the farmer had two horses. And the villagers were like, hey, where'd you get the other horse? Just showed up with my horse. My horse came back and it brought a mate. And they're like, you're so lucky. Like, someone owns that horse. But no one claimed the horse. And so he said, I got two horses now. So now he had two horses, and the villagers were like, you're so lucky. You didn't even have to pay for that horse. And the farmer said, maybe. And they're like, what do you mean maybe? It's a free horse. It's crazy. And And so he kept saying maybe, maybe. And then while training the horse, his son falls off and breaks a leg. And then they're like, oh my gosh, it's bad news. Your son, he broke his leg. And then the farmer's like, maybe it's bad news. Maybe it's good news. Like, how can that possibly be good news? Anyways, the moral of the story is that, and there's more to it than that, but the moral of the story is that you never know what's good or bad. What circumstances could be good or bad. So when I was down and out, it took that frustration to get to a place where I could declare with my mouth, I can't wait for anything outside of me to do this. So when you speak that, I believe, as someone I watch, Aaron Dougherty says, and what I've learned through many authors and speakers, is that the world is a reflection of what you believe to be true. It's nothing more than that, and it's nothing less than that. In other words, if you believe that it could be greater than what it is, then it will reflect greater than what it is. If you believe that it's a shitty place and it's a harmful environment, then it'll reflect a shitty place and a harmful environment. You'll have your good days, your bad days, but you will be essentially in whatever you reflect as your reality. And I was pretty down and out, and that was my reality, was being reflected back to me. So I listened to Leo, and after Leo came up, there was a few other videos that were on, I think YouTube was on autoplay, and some Wayne Dyer came up. There was some Tony Robbins that came up. You know, when you Google positive thinking, you're liable to get a lot of those great authors and speakers. And a coworker that I worked with also on that project, he mentioned one day, we worked alone, but we were having a chat about this shitty mindset I was in. This was around the same time. I know it was at the same week. I was at that same hospital. So probably within a day or so of this happening, he said, when I was going through a rough time, there's a book that I read called The Road Less Traveled. So after having such a great experience, an enjoyable mindset after listening to Leo's story, I Googled Road Less Traveled right on YouTube. Freaking audiobook version of it came up. This is by Scott Peck. And I will tell you that I started listening to it, threw on the Bluetooth headphones, threw the phone in the tool bag, kept rolling. The first 10 minutes of that audiobook is enough to change your life. It's enough to radically change your perspective on what is difficult and the fact that it's not really difficult. And I know that sounds strange, but you got to do this yourself. If you have Audible, get that book. Just get it. Just for the first chapter alone, get the book. It can radically shift your perception of things. So I listened to that whole audiobook, and in the meantime, when I wasn't listening to that book, I was watching other positive thinking videos. And eventually I stumbled into Wayne Dyer and started really listening to a lot of Wayne Dyer more than anything. And I also got some of his audiobooks directly from Audible and was listening to those. And he's got like 40 bestsellers, man. He's got a lot of good stuff. And so I went through all of them. And what Wayne Dyer would do back in the day when, in the 80s and things like that, is when he got a book, they didn't have social media like we have it now. So he would buy, 500 copies of these books or 1,000 copies of these books. He would buy them from the publisher. And then he would actually he'd drive his car to this town and go to the local radio station and just get a 15-minute spot and talk about and promote his book. And he would also at the same time get with a local bookstore. Remember bookstores back in the day? Walden Books, Borders, Barnes and Nobles. I'm sure a couple of those are still around. And he would set up a book signing, and he would blow this book out on this little 15-minute ad on the radio, so people would show up to buy his book from the bookstore. Well, he kept doing this all over the country, and this is how he would promote and sell his stuff. Well, I think PBS picked him up one time and realized what he was doing. They wanted to do an interview with him about it. Now, his background was that he was a therapist. He was a teacher as well as a therapist, had his own practice, and now he was an author. And so he was getting more recognition and well-known by doing this, and so, this is how he got his books going. And he was later coined as being like the father of motivation. And I remember him saying that you can't really motivate anybody. You can inspire someone to be motivated, but you really can't motivate anybody. I really resonated with Wayne Dyer's message. He took a lot of Christian principles that I follow and a lot of esoteric kind of teachings that you would find more in like the Tao Te Ching and ancient scripts like that. And he doesn't blend them together, but he references, for example, certain things that Buddha would say in a similar way that Jesus Christ would say, like direct translations and how they can resonate with each other and kind of mean the same thing. And he would very often kind of find a common knot between them and the general meaning of these things. And I loved this because this kind of brought together a universal understanding of how to live your life and what's really going on here. And I will tell you that I listened to Wayne Dyer probably a solid 3 to 4 months, and after a collective 6 months or so, 4 to 6 months of listening daily to positive thinking videos, audiobooks, and Wayne Dyer, I began to feel this change inside my mind. I felt like the low voltage contract that I had was about to shift into a greater place, more lucrative position or opportunity. I felt perhaps the relationship I was in was going to shift and become something greater, or a new relationship was going to enter my life. I felt there was a big financial thing that was going to change. It was so hard to put my finger on what it was, but it was anticipation that something was going to happen. I couldn't put my finger on it, and I was just okay with it. It was like it was producing this, I call it good anxiety, a slight nervousness, but a nervousness that you're okay with. It's like, well, whatever happens, happens. Whatever happens, good, I'm okay with it. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter what I don't know. It doesn't matter that I have no idea what my life's going to do. I'm going to be positive. This is going to happen. My life's going to get better. Things are going to turn around. I'm going to make more. I'm going to be more. I am happier already. I can see it. I can feel it. In fact, I started to feel, do I deserve to be this happy? I started to feel like, I haven't changed a fucking thing. I'm still on this shitty, I didn't say it like that. Looking back, it was shitty. I'm still on this shitty, low-paying contract. I still have to drive 40 miles every day, a couple times, to do this. I still have this relationship that doesn't have a definitive in or out. None of that's changed. Nothing's changed. But I feel so much better. Why? And here's why. Because I changed this. This was starting to change. Now, I watched a movie that Wayne Dyer put out called The Shift, about, like I said, 4 to 6 months into this. I think it was at the 6-month mark. And when I watched that movie, The Shift, it was about halfway, maybe 3/4 through it. Boom! It was like that final puzzle piece that you put in place, and you look back and you see the whole picture, and that one piece was screwing up the image of what it really was. Oh my gosh, yeah, of course, the hummingbird. Yeah, that's that little teeny tiny detail. Now I get it. Now I get the fact that, in my puzzle analogy, that little piece that had the hummingbird in it, that's what the big group of people on this side of the puzzle are staring at. And you would have never known until that little hummingbird piece got stuck in there. Now the whole picture makes sense. It's what this movie, The Shift, did for me, man. And I remember watching it, putting my hand over my face, because I was awestruck. And that movie explained extremely specifically what was going on in my mind. And I was shifting, and I was doing a permanent consciousness shift. And I felt like it was something that I'd been searching for my entire life. Probably since I was cognitive enough to know that I really wasn't enjoying aspects of my life. And I would say maybe, 12 to 14 years old, when I was started to experience some crazy testosterone, teenage angst, where I had no real direction or control or know-how or idea of what I wanted to do when I grow up, what I wanted to do for college, if I even wanted to go to college, how was I going to make it, all that shit you started to think about, in those young teen years. When you think you know, but you don't know, and there's a side of you that knows you don't know, and that's frustrating. All that was gone. And I can tell you now, I've never gone back thinking of things a certain way. And it's like, let's just say, for example, if my base level happiness was like a 3 out of a 1 to a 10, 10 being completely ecstatic all the time, over the top happy. I was probably at a 3 to 4 during that time, and when this shift happened, this was a 4 to 6 month gradual climb to about a 6 or 7, and then when I had the epiphany, I stayed at about I was like a holy shit 6, and then it elevated to like a 7 to 7.5. I stress saying 8 because eventually it got to an 8. And I was on top, man. I mean, everything just felt so perfect. Even on my bad days, I was okay. I was able to talk myself out of it. I was able to just understand that my bad days were not actually bad days until I gave them that label. I know that sounds cheesy. And here's the crazy part. When this kind of thing happens, all you want to do is go and explain it to somebody. For one, they always ask, like, dude, I remember my friends would say, dude, who are you listening to? Like, what are you listening to? Because what's going on with you, man, is good. Like, I want some of that. Like, tell me who you're listening to, because it was just radiating out of me. And on a more esoteric idea of what was going on is I had raised my vibration. And it's been the greatest single most consciousness shift that I've had. Now, I've shifted other times in my life, especially as a younger kid, when your brain develops a little bit and you shift perceptions. But this was a conscious effort that resulted in real change for the better. And I've never gone back. And although my new set point was a 6, and then after the epiphany was a 7 to maybe an 8. I've now, it's been 4 years since that time, and I've gotten used to the 8. And so now my 8 seems like, I won't say it seems like my 3 by no means, because I'll never go back to when you have a low perception of the world, you operate on a lower energy vibration. And so when you do that, it's very hard to see anything beyond a certain level. And there's a chart that Aaron Darty talks about. It's come from a book called Power versus Force, and I forget where you're at on that, that chart, but it gives an energy. It assigns like a numerical number to the energy level that certain states of mind put out, and states of mind being like anger, happiness, and that sort of thing. But once you get past anger, you get to a place of, maybe it's a couple levels up, you get to a place of neutrality, and then you get to a place of acceptance, and then ultimately you get to a place of love and joy and content, and then, higher levels of enlightenment. But, so my new set point became like this 8, which, maybe was a higher numerical value of like the 300s, maybe around, definitely a place of neutrality at that point. And I teeter-totter there, and I recognize that there's many places to go. I teeter-totter from neutrality to just a little bit above it. And I know there's many levels to get to beyond this, and I'm working on that. And it's one of the things that I think people get stuck in once they have these epiphanies. They get stuck reading information about it and learning about it instead of practicing what it takes to move forward. And another guy that I've been watching in the past few months, Joe Dispenza, talks about this. In fact, he says, this is an important time, but right now is the time. It's not good enough just to know, just to have the knowledge of what this is, but it's time to actually know how to get to this place and to develop this part of your mind that can take you to this place, and to realize the fact that we are creators of our own life. And there's a method on how to do it. And it doesn't come natural, although it's the most natural thing we can do. Society and our self-image of ourselves, otherwise known as our ego, who we identify ourselves with, is the biggest roadblock to doing something that comes so natural to our actual being of who we are. The entity side of us. Not Joe. That's just a word that identifies this meat suit that you interact with on a day-to-day basis. But the real me, the I inside of Joe, that's very natural. And that is a natural process. And we all have this. We all have an I inside of us. It's the great I am. If you read scripture, it talks about this. And I believe that is why, as the scripture says, I am is the name of God. Because God is within all of us. And so, now that's just my belief. People may have different beliefs, but, I think that belief is not far off from some of the other universal beliefs of an all-knowing, omnipotent creator. Again, once we put a label to it, it seems to negate what it actually is. It minimizes it. If I say God is God, it puts the omnipotent, all-knowing creator into a 3-letter description. And it's so much more than that we can't comprehend. So our mind has to relate to it somehow. So we assign God a name. Anyways, it's not like you could see much anyway on my drive. Can't even see my face anymore. But that was an interesting little chat. There we go. It's too bright. Anyways, this video is much longer than I anticipated. But that was how I had my epiphany. And yeah, I love talking about it, and I'll talk about it over and over and over. Do me a favor, if you got this far in this video and you actually watch this, I love hearing feedback. And if I was talking to one person, I would ask them, have you ever experienced anything like that? What was it like? How did you go there? What was your set point before? What was your set point after? Do you understand what I mean by set point? And what do you do? What do you personally do to keep that set point high? How long were you at that plateau before you came back down? What methods do you do? How do you continuously keep your mind on this trajectory? How do you progress, continuously progress, and not plateau and stay at this place? Tony Robbins talks about the way you feel good is through progress. The human mind and the human spirit will grow when it feels like there's progress in any direction in your life, financially, relationship-wise, anything, parenting skills, whatever you feel like you're doing better, you will feel good. Whenever you feel like there's progress, you will feel good. So I ask you, if you're not doing something every day that progresses at least some part of your life, then you need to reevaluate what's keeping you from doing that. I do this on a daily level. And one of the things that I try to do every day is get mindful. I've got some interesting new meditation practices that I've learned that I would love to talk about, and I will talk about that. And again, these aren't my personal creations as far as these tools I've used for manifestation and meditation, but I have my own spin on it that I'm able to talk about, and it actually works really well to getting to a calm, peaceful, mindful place. So anyways, with that being said, I'm going to end this video for now. Give me some feedback, thumb up, thumbs down. And believe it or not, this is a growing channel, so I would appreciate a follow. The more follows I have, the more I talk. And it's just getting started. Got years of videos I can put up here as this progression grows. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, Mangione out.